How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Something to Talk About. My name is Taco, and let's try this again. All right. Welcome to my All Tomorows Explained for newcomers or beginners. I'm going to say before I forget, because I always forget, please click like, please subscribe, and please comment. I will talk to anyone who comments, and yeah, all that good stuff. What I do here is I do analysis for TV shows and other things, and movies, and just kind of just like talk about what I want to talk about. And yeah, so why it looks like I'm just rambling and there's no editing, and why this video might seem off compared to how a lot of other people do it, is because I don't do any editing. I kind of go off all at once, off the cuff. I have it all set up. I have my script, and that gives me kind of room to improv and also go off my script, because I'm kind of dumb and I forget a lot of stuff. So if I say more than other people, it's because they edit out their ums. Just so you know, everybody ums. I just leave my ums in. All right, now let's talk about All Tomorows. And I have this really awesome card here. So All Tomorows, a billion-year chronicle of the myriad species and mixed fortunes of man. So this short story, if you've never heard of it, you came to the right place, because the point I'm trying to do is, my goal here is not read this amazing short story. You can find that online. Beware the Q has it online if you want to hear it. Also, you can just look it up and read it. It's not very long. But what I'm here to do, I'm going to give you history on it, and how it was written, why it was written, and also how it kind of came into the conscious view. And then I'm going to give you a little taste of the story. Not a lot of it, just enough so you're like, oh, okay, this is what is going on. So yeah, so let's bring up that awesome thing again. Okay, so yeah, it's not a spoiler. I will spoil a little, as I already said, but I'm going to get over this, or I'm going to go through its very interesting history and its journey from being a forgotten free PDF on the internet to being a little indie powerhouse it now is. So like I said, this is for beginners, people who've never read it. And yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about the history. So the author is right here, C.M. Kosemen. He was born in, I'm gonna butcher names of cities in Turkey, by the way. I'm just an uneducated freaking American for North Dakota, so bear with me, please. He was born in Ankara, Turkey in 1984. He graduated high school in Istanbul, where he went to study in New York at Cornell University for a year, 2002 to 2003, and at Sabancı University in Istanbul between 2003 and 2007, where he obtained his degree, his Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, his BA degree, there we go, bachelor's degree in visual arts and communication design. Kosemen went to Goldsmiths College in London in 2007, from which he received his MA, I believe that's master's, in documentary film and media studies in 2008. I'll stop there. All right, we do not need to keep going in Kosemen's life. He's got a really cool one. He's got a really interesting one. One I wish I had. I went to art school. I wanted to be this awesome artist, and this guy is, and he freaking worked hard for it, and I envy this guy's life. All right, here I got a picture of his home city. There we go. Let's keep that up for a second. So I'm going to stop there. We do not need to go on to his life. This video is not about him. It's just about All Tomorrows. So I'll end saying that he is a cool painter and writer and illustrator and all that stuff. He had a very cool career, or has a very cool career, and if you're interested, I suggest you seek out all of his stuff. So let's go back to in time a little bit. So Kosemen worked on All Tomorrows from 2003 to 2006. So it was when he was at the University Sabancı University. He did the writing and the illustrations, all the illustrations. He found inspiration for this work in the work from Olaf Stapledon, particularly Last and First Men, that was written in 1930, and Star Maker, that was written in 1937, alongside Edward Gibbon's History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire from 1777. So you'll see a lot of that kind of stuff in here because this is written in a very hundreds of years ago, millions of years ago, this happened way. For whatever reason, he did not want his name on this after he finished it. And he uploaded it on the internet as a PDF under the name of Nemo Ramjet, which is just a fantastic name. And there it stayed. It gained very little traction. And by 2020, it gained a small amount of attention. But remember, this was uploaded in 2006, right? So it was 14 years later, it got a little bit. All Tomorows was among the works discussed in George Mathis's The Determines book. That's all one name. Yeah. Islam, science fiction, and extraterrestrial life, which explores science fiction of the Muslim world. It's just like it came into that collection. Anyways, that all brings me to last year of June of 2021, and it brings us to a YouTube channel called Alt Shift X. Now I got a picture. It says Alt Shift X podcast. So here's a funny thing. Alt Shift X is rather elusive, but I was able to get a picture of his face, so I'm gonna have that up. There, that's Alt Shift X. I've been subscribed to Alt Shift X for like a few years, a lot of years, and I joined his Patreon 2 years ago. I've been subscribed for probably 6 years, and almost exactly a year ago. So June of 2021. It's now June of 2022. So almost a year ago, I got a notification for a vid about a thing that I've never heard of at the time called All Tomorows, right? And I never heard of it, and I watched it. I watched the vid, and basically it's in abridged version, so a shorter story. So like if the audiobook is like an hour and 40 minutes, this is like 40 minutes. So it's not super abridged, but Alt Shift X made an abridged version of All Tomorows. And I watched it and I was absolutely blown away. I showed like 4 or 5 friends, like people who were out of town, and were like, "So how's it going?" I'm like, "Have you seen this?" And I would show it to them because it was very fascinating. And eventually, over the year, I ended up reading it multiple times and even listening to it. And I have a printed out version of the PDF that I actually have given to people to read. Because I just want it to be known about, and I want to be able to discuss it with people. And that's what I'm doing here. But I want it to be out there because All Tomorows is so cool. I'm not the only person that the YouTube video caught, because as of now, writing the script, even though no one really knew about All Tomorows, it was getting a little bit of traction over the many, many, many years. Alt Shift X's video, as of at least now, is at 8.9 million views. So it helped bring All Tomorows from the depths of the internet up, and now you can find a lot of YouTube channels and other people talking about it. And after that Alt Shift X video, I'm not saying everybody learned it from that, but even CM Kosemen himself said that, he thanks that the channel. So there's also a channel called Beware the Q that does a lot of different lore videos of All Tomorows that I highly suggest. And that's also where you can find a really good audiobook of it. So Alt Shift X had this guy has a podcast, and he had CM Kosemen on his podcast, and they discuss what the YouTube video did for the short story. I'm not going to rehash all that they discussed, but if you end up reading All Tomorrows and if you want to hear them talk about it, it's a really, really fantastic way to spend a couple hours. I highly suggest listening to when CM Kosemen is on All Shift X. So let's kind of dive into it, right? So that was the history. So it was uploaded as a PDF, and then it kind of went away into obscurity, and then Alt Shift X heard about it, read it, and then because Alt Shift X does a lot of different sci-fi stuff, but he mainly did a Song of Ice and Fire videos, Game of Thrones videos, and that's how I found him, right? Years and years, and probably 6 or 7 years ago. And he brought a lot of these fan theories from different Reddit forums out into the open. And that's how he kind of got a lot of all of his viewers. So the fact that everyone flocked on this All Tomorows, which not a lot of people knew about, I think it's so cool. And I was one of the first people to watch it because I love Alt Shift X and I'm part of his Patreon. And when it popped up, I was like, oh, I'm watching this. And yeah, so there we go. That's the history. And I think it's a really cool history. It's really fantastic and interesting way how it was able to come out of obscurity. Anyways, I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse. Let's talk more. So let's actually, like I said, I'm not going to spoil the entire story. I'm just going to give you a little taste, and I'll leave out a lot of the really crazy fun details and stop a little less than halfway. I just want to give you an idea of what this book has in store. And yeah, so here on out is a very, very, very brief summary of not even probably about 40% of the book. And it's just enough to be like, whoa. All right, so keep in mind, he did, Seema Kosemen did all these illustrations along with writing it, and it's about 111 pages, at least the PDF is, but a lot of those are all pictures, and a lot of the pages are only like half full of text, so it's a really quick read. All right, so it all started with To Mars is what this is called. So this is a ship when humans then go to Mars. So the first ever new species that humans evolve into are the Martians. So people go to Mars and get like elongated from the difference of gravity, which then leads to a war. Now I'm doing all of this without a script. This is just because I love this story, and I'm just going to show you the pictures and just kind of go on. So the Martians and the humans then have a little bit of a civil war. Keep in mind, very abridged. All right. And after the Civil War, the Martians fighting, not the humans, so they're actually called Martian Americans, which is great, fight Earth. So the war between Martian Americans and Earth afterwards lead to them deciding, they band back together and them deciding that they need to take over more of the galaxy, and they actually genetically alter themselves to become the Star People. So the Star People first go all over the galaxy, and they lived like that for a long time, different planets all over the place, until they come across a alien on another planet that actually has a lot of the same DNA as dinosaurs, and it really confuses them. Like, how is there dinosaurs on other planets, and why are they all genetically messed up and altered? And it's called the first little warning, the first warning of another being in the galaxy, but a way more terrifying thing than anyone's ever dealt with, and it is the Q. So the Q actually fight by genetically modifying their enemies. So they kind of see themselves as gods. Well, and if you have the ability to just modify your enemies, I could see that. But they think that Earth or humans are kind of messing with the galaxy and messing with the status quo. And as the Q kind of consider themselves as gods, it's almost like, wait, that's what we do. Like, we do that. These guys are kind of getting in the way, and they almost consider like humans as doing something messed up, which is funny because that's what the Q are. So they attack all the humans, genetically modify all these different planets, all these thousands of planets that humans are on, into new creatures. And some humans fight back, some planets fight back and have a little bit of a resistance, but none of them succeed. And then the Q stay on these worlds for a very long time before they leave. So this is when it gets interesting. So these weird double-winged dragonfly monsters create all these new myriad species of humans. Now that's where this goes from being kind of a normal sci-fi story, like, oh, Martians and Star People, kind of a normal sci-fi story, into this weird, crazy, special thing. So now I'm just going to show you guys really glimpses, just really quick, of the different things that humans get modified into. So the first one we hear about are the worms. They live on a super hot planet, and they have these little pinprick eyes, and the planet, like the surface is like boiling heat. So they actually burrow and live inside the ground, and they're pretty mindless. And this is the first things we hear about. So these are actually modified monster humans called the worms. One of the more complex ones at the start are the Titans, who actually get to quite, they evolved, kind of quick, and they actually get to about a Stone Age. So it's a giant, huge human that walk around on their knuckles, and their lower lip is stretched out like an elephant. And then we have different planets where 2 sets of new humans are made. And one of them are the ones with the hunters and the prey. It's pretty self-explanatory. So some humans got made into these very teeth-clawed hunters, and then were hunting their fellow humans as prey. So many of these different humans don't have sentience anymore. Like the worms don't remember being humans or anything like that. Some of them do, and we'll get to that very soon, actually. And yeah, so a lot of them don't have sentience. Now, this species actually did, and that's what makes it so terrifying, are the Mantalobes. So the Mantalobes, I love the namings. So these are all how they're named in the book. Mantalobes actually had full sentience, and a lot of them had memories of being humans, which then made them being this prey-like animal being attacked by predators all that more terrifying, because they actually did have full sentience. And then eventually they stopped having sentience, because evolutionarily having full sentience and knowing as much as a fully intelligent creature, it's hard to explain, but knowing the concept of life and death is kind of a bad trait to have when you're a mantalope, when you're just prey. So eventually evolution phased out sentience and made them a lot more primitive, because being primitive actually worked out better for them. And then here comes a really weird one. We have the swimmers. So they're, of course, from an aquatic world. They had a little bit more sentience, I think, but they have very human eyes, but they're exactly what they look like. These big, fat dolphin guys is another thing they got turned into. And then we had the lizard hoarders. So the lizard hoarders weren't as modified as normal as all the other ones, compared to, the ones I've already showed you. They looked rather human, but their brains were completely knocked, and they became these, they're called the lizard hoarders, herders, but they kind of found an easy way to live, because these lizards who weren't humans, just the herders were, but the lizards were just lizards that were on this planet. But since they kind of found a decent enough existence, they never had to evolve, and eventually the humans stayed this way, never evolving, and the lizards, though, kind of found their way, which I'm not going to get to, but there's a little hint. And then here comes one of the really weird ones, if those weren't weird enough. We have the Temp Tours. Some of these are really messed up. So this is the Temp Tours were living monuments and living statues. So the top half came out of the ground and the bottom half were in the ground. And the ones like that, the monuments, were the females. And the weird little freaking dude is the males. And they would crawl into these tunnels to either feed or mate with their monument wives. And the Temp Tours actually did pretty good. They got all around this planet in these big fields of Temp Tours. So weird. It's not the weirdest one. Then we got the Bone Crushers. They kind of look like big giants, and their teeth became just 2 big beak teeth. They actually would, I can't believe I'm about to say the sentence, they would eat decayed flesh, and they only ate decayed flesh, and they would communicate by defecating. Because when all you do is eat decayed, nasty meat, you do that a lot. All right. I'm almost done. I hope you guys are liking some of these. I think they're great. So then you have the Colonials. I don't want to get too much into this because it's really, really, really messed up. But the Colonials were the planet of humans that actually fought back the most. And to punish them, the Q let them keep their sentience, but turned them into just flaps of skin with one eye and a hole, which isn't a mouth, by the way, and that's it. They lived as filters on beaches, and they actually were very efficient, and they kind of flourished in this horrible state of agony that these sentient skin flaps got. Oh my God. Yay, the Colonials. Don't fight back against the Q. Then we have the Flyers. That's what you would expect, flying humans. But some flyers were successful, like these ones. Some were not, like the hand flappers, who couldn't quite do anything with their hands because they didn't have fingers, but also they couldn't fly. They would just kind of flap, and they just kind of like flapped and danced into extinction. Then you got the blind folk, very Morlock-looking guys. I'm sure you can just assume what's going on here by looking at them. They lived underground, so they didn't need eyes. They got around with from both their whiskers and then their really big eyesight, like sonar, like a bat. And yeah. Let's get into another really weird one. We got the Lopsiders. Yes, Picasso, Monet, and Salvador Dali, very inspired here. So Lopsiders were on a planet that were super high in gravity, and they were stuck flat like that and would rock around on those three hands. And they had one eye that pointed straight up at the sun, which doesn't sound very smart. And they had one eye going forward to look forward at, to see where they were going. And believe it or not, these little freaking monsters actually did pretty well. All right, so let's get off these. Some of these are such fever dreams. We got the Striders, who are exactly opposite. The Striders actually came from a world of very low gravity, but their bones were really fragile, and when you stand that tall and you keep falling over, you end up breaking stuff, and I don't think they last very long. All right, we got the Parasites, and this is the first time I'm going to actually bring up how a lot of these drawings weren't just on a blank piece of paper. He actually would take different photographs and draw over the photographs. So this is actually a photograph of a part of somebody's body, and then he drew the parasite over it. I really love this guy's art. So remember, Kosemen did all of these drawings. Parasites are exactly what you think. It's a planet of different parasites, some small, some very large, and the hosts were rather simple, but the parasites actually gained a lot of intelligence and eventually kind of took over. And yeah, a lot of these, not all of them, but a lot of them evolve into greater beings and have a second set of species. I'm not getting into all those. Like I said, I don't want to give you guys all, but I just kind of want to show you what's going on, of how this isn't a normal sci-fi story. Even the Q turn humans into all these different things. And I just love this art, and I love these designs. These concepts are so cool and so interesting, and very unique. So then you got the finger fishers, exactly what you think. They walk around their oceans and use their fingers as lures. And this is my favorite. You got the heathenists that were actually the favorite of the Q, and the Q rewarded them actually by making them the heathenists, which all they did was kind of just lay on the beach and had giant sex parties. But they were made very simple. So for the longest time, they never needed to evolve because they kind of had everything they wanted, and they weren't really that intelligent. But yes, the heathenists, just mind-blowing pleasures, and that's all they had. Then you got the Insectopha guy. Another not super changed version, but yeah, these humans who just lived on a planet of all these different types of insects and would eat the insects. We're almost done. We only got 2 left. Now, this one's one of the most interesting. So these guys actually are the star people, or the humans, unaltered by the Q, went and hid in space, and their bodies actually evolved to handle living in space. And it's the spacers. They actually got around by highly evolved butts, and they would fart to fly around. I'm not making this up. Stephen Kosemen made it up. They had these big, long, spindly fingers, and so these are what humans in space, untouched by the Q, eventually evolved into. So, one day your great grandson will look like a spacer. Probably. Maybe not. I hope not. And then the last one I'm going to discuss is, instead of like kind of leaving these species to kind of evolve on their own. They had the ruin haunters, and the ruin haunters, they left on planets that still had a lot of, ruins. They weren't super evolved or super changed, but they did have a lot of technology from both the Q and the Star People, which actually make the ruin haunters evolve like baptism by fire. Like they become sentient and they get a rather advanced civilization going when everybody else is still working on the Stone Age. Ruin hunters are a big deal later on in the story. So there you go. There's your tiny little test. Believe it or not, I did not give away a lot. That should be just enough. It's a lot less than what's given away in the Ullshift X video that I watch. So, yeah, if you made it this far, please, thank you. And please go watch All Tomorows. It is a trip. It is so cool. And, yeah. And if you did make it this far, prove it to me in the comments. And why don't we, here, let's choose one. Why don't you write, who are my favorite? Why don't you somehow work in the comments? You can either just type this right out or you can just work it into your own comment. But if you put in comments Lopsiders, I will give you a shout out in the next video I'll make after this one's posted. So yeah, I will be like, hey, and you, thanks for commenting. Please. All right, so there we go. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you don't know what All Tomorows is, I hope you're intrigued. It's super cool and it's super easy to find. So check it out. I definitely went from a year ago not knowing about it to being a giant fan of this. So thank you, Team Kosemen, for writing it. Thank you, Ullshift X, for kind of showing the world more of the world it. And there you go. This is just a tiny little intro for it. Thank you, guys. And yeah, there you go. Like, subscribe if you haven't, and hope you guys have a really, really fantastic weekend or whatever day it is when you guys are watching it. Have a good one.